Hello everybody and welcome back to the Sonic and the Black Knight playthrough. Now I know I said we were going to go take on Percival, but we have a few extra missions that we can do before then, so I'm going to do them now. Just because they might be a bit of fun. And also this gives me a bit of time to talk about Percival the Knight. Because Percival's a little bit of a difficult one. Certainly not the most famous of knights, but certainly very important in the medieval culture, or at least in the Arthurian mythos that has been created. He was first made famous by Chrétien de Troyes in the tale Conte du Graal, which is basically the tale of the Grail, story of the Grail. His other name is simply Percival. And that story was given to the fictional figure of Peredur, son of Efyc, in the Welsh adaptation of Chrétien's tale called Peredur ab Efroc. And basically he's the most well-known knight for being the original hero in the quest for the Grail, before eventually being replaced in later literature by Galahad. Which is really disappointing. But what happens in the story of the Grail is that Percival is a kind of young man. His mother's protected him from knights for his entire childhood for fear that he would leave her. And then a group of knights passes through the woods. Percival's struck by their heroism, essentially, and wants to be a knight. So he leaves home to travel to King Arthur's court in the Conte du Graal. His mother dies. I mean, she faints of shock upon seeing him leave. I'm pretty sure she dies in that one. But eventually Percival proves his worthiness as a warrior, then is named Percival and joins the Knights of the Round Table. On kind of the journey, he meets the crippled Fisher King and sees a Grail, but he fails to ask a question that would have healed the injured king. After leaving, he then finds out that this was a mistake, and he vows to find the Grail Castle again and fulfill his quest. But unfortunately, Chrétien never finished Le Conte du Graal. And so many other writers took up the story from there. Which is rather sad, but it's quite cool that Chrétien inspired so many people. I mean, everything to do with Arthurian literature is essentially fan fiction. Because lots of writers got inspired by the original stories and then either continued them or wrote new stories or what have you. But what followed from Chrétien's original story was that people then made the true Grail hero Galahad, which is Lancelot's son. So Percival then gets rather diminished in terms of the romances. But he's still a major player because he is one of only 2 knights who accompanies Galahad to the Grail Castle and completes the quest with him. And that's pretty much about your lot with Percival. There's very little to him because all we have is the Grail story, whereas with Lancelot and Gawain there's much more of a history to them, because Gawain was in the stories of Arthur before Geoffrey of Monmouth got his hands on him, which is surprising to know that there is some stories before Geoffrey of Monmouth to do with Arthur. Like, I'm pretty sure I was told there's a relief stone thing on a building which has Arthur, Guinevere, Sir Kay and Gawain on it. I think it's they've gone to rescue Guinevere. I can't remember where it is. I don't think I'd ever be able to find it unless I asked the supervisor who told me that story to just repeat the information for me. But obviously, having now left university, that's probably not going to happen. And then obviously, everyone got really, really enamoured with Lancelot and the affair narrative with Guinevere, because everyone's quite fond of courtly love. It's why the likes of Romeo and Juliet became so popular. Obviously, nowadays, that sort of relationship is just looked on as really naive. Which is fair enough, but it's just like, oh! I mean, I think half the problem with that sort of stuff is that at school, most people, when they're dealing with Shakespeare, deal with Romeo and Juliet. And that makes them rather bored of Shakespeare, because it's as popular as Romeo and Juliet is, it's certainly not one of his best plays, I would say. But I mean, if you read through Lancelot, the Knight of the Cart, which is Chrétien's romance, which was the main thing that introduced the Lancelot-Guinevere relationship into the mix, I think people might quite enjoy that. Like, Chrétien's a very good writer, and even in translation from the medieval French, or Middle French is probably what it is, he's very good. And surprisingly funny. Chrétien likes making a joke every now and again. He's not the funniest of writers, probably. I mean, I think Marie de France is probably the funniest, because her lays, which are like short stories, really, she quite like making jokes. There's also Andreas Capellanus, although he didn't do any Arthurian stuff. He just wrote a treatise called On Love, which was about courtly love in its entirety, and it was either serious or just a piss take. If it was a piss take, then it was quite funny, because it was so serious about everything, and it's just like, oh! But we should probably move away from Andreas Capellanus, because Arthurian literature is just much more interesting than that. And also there are other more interesting books in medieval literature. I mean, one that I would probably always refer to if you wanted to know how crazy medieval literature can get is The Life of St. Margaret. I think it's St. Margaret. Essentially, she is incarcerated for her beliefs in Christ, typical saint stuff, and during her incarceration she is faced with, like, she prays to God that she will see the demons facing her, and there's a dragon, and the dragon eats her, but because she's kind of drawn the cross on herself, the dragon explodes and she's completely unharmed. And then there's a demon, which I think is described as blacker than any black man, because obviously they were at least a little bit racist back in the day. And she puts him into a stranglehold, wrestles him to the ground, and I think has her foot on his neck at some point. So she completely beats him up. It's hilarious. And this is in addition to when you get all of the doodles that people draw in their manuscripts. I mean, in the one that I will always remember, and I'm pretty sure I have said about this particular manuscript before, is in Cambridge Manuscript FF548, which is one of the ones that I studied as part of my degree. My go-to. There was a goat with a laser coming out of its nose. I have no idea. That is what it looked like. So that is what I will describe it as. And it was just like, what the hell is this thing? And I will always remember that because it was hilarious. Has nothing to do with any of the stories that are in that manuscript. Because you have, I think it was the ABCs of Aristotle. I might be completely wrong. There's an ABC of something or other. And there was the Tale of the Basin, which is hilarious because it's a story of two people cheating and getting stuck to a bathtub, and then a prostitute who's like completely naked gets attached, and then there's a gardener who gets attached, and it's just hilarious. There's some which are a little bit darker, but the funny stuff is hilarious and filthy. And yeah, I think that sort of stuff, and also just how fun the romances are, because it's just your simple Knight's Quest narratives that you get in the romances, and they're just so much fun, and I just got so screwed over there. All I can say is thank God for those rings, the fairies, massive air quotation marks, otherwise that would not have ended well. I mean, it still didn't really. I mean, that 3 stars better than I thought I was going to get. But either way, we have a new mission, and I think I know what this mission is going to be. Quite exciting. Yep, there we go. Defeat the boss, Sir Percival. Technically, it should probably be Dame Percival because, you know, Blaze female. But I won't nitpick on that because Percival's just awesome, as is Blaze. So I don't really care.
I'm Sonic the Hedgehog. I have no master, except the wind that blows free.
Very well, Sonic, Knight of the Wind, prepare for battle!
Bring it on!
Also, I am in love with that acoustic guitar song. Just so cool! Because Blaze doesn't have a theme, so to have that was just glorious. Now, Blaze is certainly the most difficult of the Knights of the Round Table. The best way of dealing with her is to abuse that guard for all it's worth and just attack whenever there is an opening. That took me so many tries. I think it was like at least 10 minutes of starting and restarting that fight because like I wanted to get 5 stars on all the Knights of the Round Table just because I wanted to be a badass for once, because lanky, slightly eccentric, well, very eccentric, 20-something-year-old who's small and scrawny don't really get that many opportunities to be badass. So I'll take what I can get, really. But I was quite happy with that run. And, aww, yay for Sonic saving Percival.
That was close.
Why? Why did you...
I guess you could say that Whim is my other master.
Save the hugs and kisses for later.
What? You jealous or something?
For a knave such as you? Ridiculous.
Enough of that knave stuff already.
Actually,
Yes?
Sonic the Hedgehog, you have mastered the code of chivalry. From this day forth, you shall be Sir Sonic, Knight of the Wind.
Merlina!
I saw all that transpired in my reflecting pool. I have no words to thank you for all you have done.
Yeah, but it's not over yet.
Sir Sonic is right. We must still defeat King Arthur.
The king is on an island known as Avalon. You have become a fine knight.
Ah, cut it out. Anyway, I guess I'll go end this thing then.
Good luck, Sir Sonic. I'll await you at Castle Camelot.
And there we go, we get a whole bunch of missions, which I did attempt to do. I attempted to do one of them, but it was a little bit of a pain, and I just thought, nope, you know what? It's not worth it. We've had a nice build-up there. Let's go to faraway Avalon and take down King Arthur in what's going to be a glorious climactic battle. I say with no hint of irony.
I'm Sonic the Hedgehog, Knight of the Wind. Let's settle this once and for all, King Arthur.
It seems your impersonation of a knight has improved somewhat.
I have you to thank for that.
Then let us have another look at that unsightly swordsmanship.
You're gonna be sorry you asked. This is it, old pal.
Indeed. Give it everything you have. Only then will you prevail.
Then bring it on, King Arthur!
Oh, Night of the Wind. Love that theme song so much. And now we get Fight the Knight, which is quite cool. Certainly not the best song in the world, but yeah, we're gonna absolutely cheese King Arthur. Because you could go about this the slow way, or you could do what I'm going to do and just absolutely obliterate him. You avoid that attack. There's a sword attack as well that you can do, just either stand in the middle or stand out of the way. But as soon as you get here, just get through this particular phase. And then, perfect hits. Just continue that. He will be down before you know it. As I said, totally climactic. It's a bit of a naff fight, to be honest. It's a bit more epic when you are struggling through it and it keeps going. Sometimes rather frustrating, but if you can do it like that, then it's just like, oh, I'm fine with that. I will take it, and I will be happy. But there we go. It's time to defeat King Arthur once and for all.
Now, Sonic, the three sacred swords.
Got it!
How can this be? No!
Yes! I did it!
And now it's time for the credits! Hey! These aren't the real credits. I mean, they are, but there is more game after this. But I thought, let's just leave it in, because it means we get to listen to the full version of Night of the Wind, which is just a really, really amazing theme song. I miss the days when Sonic had songs, like theme songs done by Crush 40, because there's just something about this 90s-esque rock that just works with Sonic's character. It always has. I think it always will. I mean, obviously, I love myself some endless possibilities, and hey, even a bit of cash, because Reach for the Stars was a lot of fun. But this sort of sound is what I will, I think, always associate with Sonic. And yeah, I suppose I should probably talk about my thoughts on Sonic and the Black Knight while these fake credits roll. I mean, I enjoy it. You can probably tell by my enthusiasm for talking about the Arthurian side of things that I've got a fondness for this game. I mean, I did before I even had any of that background information, but I think I do even more so now because, all things considered, they actually did a reasonably good job of dealing with the Arthurian material. Like, obviously having Shadow be Lancelot, that works out quite nicely because of the rivalry. Knuckles as Gawain works out reasonably well as he's sort of popular, maybe a little bit dim, but incredibly good-natured. Blaze as Percival works out quite well because there's a whole thing in Percival's story of Percival defeating knights in like one hit and just being ridiculously powerful, and that works out quite well. They've got the Nimue giving Arthur Excalibur. They've got that bit down. They've got slight mystique about the character. They've got Caliburn, because Caliburn is actually part of the Arthurian myth. Caliburn, I think... Well, I'm not going to go entirely into that because it is going to spoil an important point to do with Caliburn. But the whole thing with Caliburn is very, very well done, if you ask me. It's a very clever thing that most people wouldn't notice unless they knew their Arthurian legends. So you have all of that, you have some really interesting levels, you have fun gameplay. It's not perfect, there's the delay on the sword swinging, but it works. And presentation values are high. The only real problems that I have are just the slight over-franticness of some of the gameplay that you have to do, and just the breakneck speed with which it completes itself, because missions are over what feels far too quickly, boss fights are over what feels far too quickly, and the game's over far too quickly. I mean, I understand how somebody made the mistake of thinking, oh, the game's over when these rolled, because you just think, oh, well, we've defeated King Arthur, everything's done, but not quite. We have the second half of the game to go, and it's going to be pretty awesome. Pretty difficult, sort of. I mean, it's still going to be relatively easy, all things considered, but you're going to be facing off against greater challenges in the second half of Black Knight, and some of the missions are certainly hard. But you will have to wait until the next part to see where all of that leads. Obviously, if you've already played the game or already watched my previous playthrough, then you already know where this all goes. But I've got to leave some sort of mystery, haven't I? But there we go. King Arthur's defeated. Let's see where everything goes in the next part.